Hello and welcome back to the channel. The manhwa we are going to recap today is about a girl who is adopted by the Duke to become his heir. So let's begin with our recap. The manhwa begins with an introduction of the empire's northern point, having a territory famous for its danger and ruggedness. The owner of the land is Boliodi, and the current Duke Filio Boliodi has two distinctive traits since he was little. The first is his looks and the second is his savagery. He is born with the nickname of the Black Scavenger. His eyes have a glare that seems as if they could kill someone on sight. Besides, he has amazing dark eyes, sharp nose and jawline, slightly colored lips and well-defined muscles and neckline. As a member of one of the only two dukedoms in the country, he is also number one in the country in terms of husband material. The scene then cuts to a beautiful mansion and Duke saying that they have finished what they have had to do in the capital, so they should make plans to return to North. The servants agree, but then suddenly Duke talks about him adopting a child. Everyone is shocked and asks him if that is some kind of a joke. Duke replies by asking that if he has time for jokes. The servant agrees to his confusing request, and that is how everything starts. The scene then cuts to an orphanage in the east. There is a blonde cute girl who is trembling because of how nervous she is. She finds Duke quite frightening and starts crying. Duke hides his face so the baby stops crying. He asks his servant that until when does he have to do this. Servant who is confused replies by saying that this was his own order. The servant continues by saying that this is a new record. Duke questions by what it is. Servant replies by saying that all of the kids are crying the moment they see Duke. Just a glance is able to make them cry. That is quite an accomplishment itself. Duke replies by saying that when he is thinking about it, it has been a while since his sword has seen blood. The servant understands this as a threat and remains quiet, and replies with saying they are being extremely disrespectful. This is why ignorant children. The servant thinks to himself that he hates this position of himself and questions himself by just saying why. He further thinks to himself why Duke all of the sudden wants a kid. Meanwhile in Duke's thought, they see a blonde person talking about how his kid spoke yesterday. The kid said daddy every time he sees him, and that makes him so happy each time. His older sibling tries his best to take care of him too, and that makes him so proud. Duke replies with saying that his mouth is going to fall off if he keeps talking like that. Is he really that happy over a child? The blonde person replies by saying that he will understand when he becomes a parent. He then jokingly asks about his plans on his marriage, but Duke coldly replies to die. The blonde person says that he wants to become his in-law and also says that once he has a cute child like this, he really cannot go back. You know. Filio replies by telling him to say that after he looks at his unbothered face right now. The blonde person in a calm tone says that fatherhood is something that is really sublime. Kids are so lovely, he wants him to feel this feeling one day. The scene then cuts back to Duke asking if he has already met everyone at this orphanage. The servant replies by saying yes. Following the last kid just now, Duke has met all 18 children here. Duke tells his servant let's move on to the next one. As Duke is moving towards the door, the servant thinks to himself that he should get married instead. An old person calls out his name and apologizes for not being able to treat him properly during his visit. They are all pretty and kind children. Being able to see the Duke even once was a massive stroke of luck for them. He goes on by saying that winter is just around the corner and he is worried whether the children will be able to stand it. The servant thinks to himself that he is asking for Duke's support. Looking at the condition of the facilities, the old man does not seem to have an interest in maintaining the place. The next orphanage does not seem like it will be any different. Suddenly a loud scream is heard. Some child is fighting off a man and biting off his finger. The child then rushes off towards Duke and yells his name out. Duke takes a glance at her and everyone is shocked on how the child does not cry when she looks at Duke. The servant then calls out her hair and eyes to be similar to the Duke's. The old man apologizes and is hurrying to put her away. Duke stops the old man. He calls out his servant Rupert, and he replies with the child not being on the list. The old granny says that child is someone that has no manners and only causes accidents. Rupert questions her if she disobeys the Duke. He has surely made it clear that the Duke wished to meet every child here. Everyone gets fearful and gets on their knees to apologize. The child takes a glance at the people bowing down to him, and Duke asks her name. The girl with fearless eyes replies with her not having one. Duke is shocked because he thinks the orphanage gives her a name. The girl replies by saying that the adults call her Nia, but she hates that name. Duke looks her dead in the eyes and says that she looks very bold. He asks her if she knows whose path she is blocking right now. It would not be weird for her to get executed on the spot. Duke walks toward her, but she holds her ground, standing fearlessly. Duke is amazed by how brave she is, and says that her name does not suit her at all. Duke thinks for a while till he thinks of a name. He calls her Leonia Boliotti. The Duke naming her Leonia Boliotti. That is her new name. She replies with it being too long. Duke replies by giving a savage response on her name being Leonia, idiot. Leonia does not like that and tells him that she is not an idiot. He picks her up and says that he should call an etiquette tutor when they get back to the dukedom. Rupert is shocked by his lord's decision. Leonia then talks about how Duke feels messing with a child, and he says that it is more fun than he thought. She calls him a pervert. Rupert, still processing on what just happened, takes a moment to realize what just happened. The name Leonia Boliotti means the roaring lion. The scene then cuts to the same blonde person named Count Carnus Rene. He is one of the few people in the empire that can have a casual conversation with the Duke. Those two men stole everyone's heart at the academy. They think of Duke Boliotti as a snow-capped peak, Count Rene a sun-kissed prairie. Count Rene brags about his child any chance he gets to the point where it is probably etched in Duke's mind. Duke tells Count Rene to sit down, he is being annoying. He notices that there seems to be a lot of families on that day in particular. Everyone seems happy. He asks himself if something like parenthood really gives them happiness. The girl then asks him if that is why he adopted her, and he replies with. She then goes on yelling about how people usually adopt because they are unable to conceive a child, or because they like children so much, or because they saw them while volunteering. Or maybe they look like a dead child of theirs. But Duke is adopting because his friend told him about his kid? The girl really questions his decision. Duke replies by her looking unsatisfied. The girl asks Duke if he is stupid, and he says that his child seems to have quite a vocabulary. He asks her if she did not want this. Is not that why she blocked his path? The girl answers by. She thinks that Duke would let her finally escape from that gloomy old orphanage. She thinks of it being close to a gamble. She never thinks she would be this fortunate though. She asks Duke for a request. The teachers and the head of that orphanage, they are embezzling funds. He says that he figures. She then talks about they abused them. They have been talking to pimps now too. Duke is shocked by her knowing what a pimp is. She replies by saying that she knows they are people that sell others to brothels and stuff. She says that they are planning to sell off one of the girls. So she asks him if he can punish them. Duke asks if she wants him to punish all of them. The girl replies with everyone except Miss Connie. She took good care of them. He thinks to himself, that woman with brown hair and a broken finger, right? The girl says yes, and asks how he knows about that. He answers by saying that she is the only one that takes care of the children. The girl then talks about how the old man Dean beats them when he is drunk. Duke asks about her bruise on her arm. She says that is because of another. She says that the bruises from the Dean are on her back, so she asks him to punish them. He asks her how. Should he kill them? The girl replies with no, but torture him until he begs for a quick death. Duke is shocked by that response and questions himself if she is really only 5. Rupert then calls Duke out and tells him to stay here. Rupert is confused on his order. Duke tells Rupert that it is pretty dirty here. He should do some cleaning for them. He tells them to clean it thoroughly and leave no dust behind. Rupert understands the deep meaning behind this and agrees. Suddenly Leonia yells out his name and says that if he is going to clean it, tear their arms and legs apart, hit them in the back with a leather belt, put their nose on a place, cut everything off, until they can never stand up again. Except for Miss Connie. She has been treating us nicely. There is evidence of embezzlement in the safe behind the photo frame. Rupert's soul leaves his body and Duke says that she is a spirited one. One of the soldiers asks Rupert if she is not the Duke's hidden daughter, right? Rupert holds his head and tells them to first finish their work. The girl in the carriage shaking, so she hides her face with the cloth wrapped around her. Duke notices this, but does not say anything. Someone knocks at the windows. Duke asks what it is. Dame Levi Path. Dame apologizes that she has to stop suddenly. It is late and the lady does not seem well. They are wondering if she would like to spend the night at the nearby inn. The girl yells at them saying that she is fine, but Duke agrees on stopping for the night. Leonia is pissed, but Duke explains to her that she is shaking because she has not eaten, but she still seems to have a loud voice. The Duke thinks to himself that it seems alright for Leonia to rest here. Duke takes a glance at Leonia and tells Levi Path that once Leonia recovers her strength, Make preparations to leave. Levi Path replies with yes, Your Grace. Leonia is about to fall and Duke saves her in time. Leonia says that Duke has a really nice reaction time. Levi Path is shocked on how Duke is on his knees. Duke tells Dame Levi Path to take care of the lady. He says yes, sir. Duke first says to get her somewhere warm and get her some food after. He will go ask the inn owner to make preparations right away. The girl is handed to Levi Path and asks him who he is. She replies that her name is Levi Path Malius and to call her Malius. She asks him if she is a knight too, and he says. She says that is so cool and is amazed. She thinks she is cute. After that they cut to her having a horrific face. She is shocked on the amount of bruises she has behind her back. Leonia asks Levi Path if her back is a bit bruised. She really wants it to heal faster. She keeps waking up because it stings. She keeps getting hit before it could heal at all. Levi Path asks her to close her eyes and puts water on her and consults her to not worry too much about the bruises. At her age, a little rest and some good food can heal anything. Levipatha's younger brother gets hurt a lot too, so she has someone medicine that helps with healing. She will put some on after they are done washing. Leonia smiles to herself and asks Levi Path if she has a younger brother. She says yes, and says that he is a ball of trouble, so he goes around and gets hurt a lot. Leonia wearing a cute blue dress surprises Duke, but his response is just looking at her. She then talks about how she smells so nice. She has never smelled something like this before. Duke tells her that she still is pretty ugly, which pisses Leonia off and asks him if he helps with that at all. He replies with saying that he does not have anything to do with that, but she is his daughter now, so he should worry about it all the same. Leonia tells him to live with it. This is his future. Meanwhile, Levi Path is very shocked on the situation. Duke then goes on saying that he has never just lived with something in his life. Leonia yells at him, telling him that what it means to raise a child. They can then see Leonia sleeping on her bed. Meanwhile, Duke is sitting in his chair thinking that abuse seems pretty serious, and according to the lady, the beating takes place continually over long periods of time. Levi Path is surprised because she is small for her age, but it looks like they do not feed her properly as well. Duke calls out Levi Path and she answers. He says that anyone who has dared to touch the children will be brought to the dukedom, and he will torture them himself, making a very angry and pissed off face. Leonia is showing off her dress and saying that this is her first time wearing these kind of clothes. Levi Path tells her that it does suit her well. Leonia smiles out of joy, but then she hears Duke's comment on how she looks like a proper human, which angers Leonia, and she says that she is still a human before. He should compliment people at times like this. Duke replies by saying why he should compliment someone who is not that pretty. Leonia yells at him by calling him Mr. and that he is too much. He is even her dad now. Duke says that she still calls him Mr. She says that she is not used to the word dad. Duke says that he is not familiar with compliments either. Leonia is pissed. But then Duke thinks of something and tells Leonia that if she wants compliments that much, she should gain some weight. Levi Path goes on by saying that she will go ahead and check on the carriage. Someone calls Levi Path out and Levi Path replies with if everyone is ready to depart. Levi Path seems bothered and they ask her if something is wrong. She replies with saying that no, her grace just treats the lady differently than he does others. The soldier asks Levi Path what she is looking so serious for. What does she mean that Lord is not like that usually? Duke then comes towards his door and asks them what they are doing in front of the door. They apologize for the inconvenience. The soldiers are shocked to see Duke with a child. Levi Path says she will take some time to prepare their meals, so Duke and Leonia go out to take a walk. Leonia also waves at the soldiers and they chuckle and wave back. They both are confused on what they just witnessed. The girl is so full that she is scared that she would vomit. Duke asks her just vomit then. She thinks the carriage is expensive and that would be such a waste. The cleaning stuff will have a hard time too. Duke questions why she is worried about that. She is now a member of the Buglioti family. Throwing away a carriage like this is nothing. In the time you are breathing right now, we are making enough money to buy another one. Duke tells her to tell him whatever she wants. Leonia then goes on love bombing Duke and telling him how much of a cool person he is and that money is the best. She really does not want to vomit. Vomiting hurts and people should be rich at heart, too. Duke says that is all bull crap. Leonia agrees that is bull crap. That is just what the poor say so they can claim the moral higher ground. Leonia asks Duke if he knows how the world works. Duke, instead of answering, reads out his list that has clothes, supplies, and he will have a lot of things to buy. But when he hears about her talking about the poor, saying that so they can claim the moral of higher ground, he thinks to himself that she is knowledgeable. Suddenly Levi Path appears on the window. Leonia then talks about how much she likes her, and Duke adds his comment on her being an excellent knight. Duke thinks to himself that now that he thinks about it, she will need a knight to guard Leonia. He then thinks about the people she needs: an etiquette tutor, a personal guard, a head maid, and candidate for an escort as Levi Path. Duke then asks Leonia if she has ever tried crossing the gate before. Suddenly Leonia starts to vomit and they take her out. Levi Path asks her if she is okay. Duke thinks to himself how weak she is, because when she is asked about the gate, she asks what it is. Duke replies it, to put it simply, it is something that can get you across long distances in an instant. It is rare, but first-timers can get a bit sick sometimes. It is something like a tunnel. Leonia says that she has not been on it before, but she thinks she will be okay. Duke says that he has not seen anyone die from a bit of motion sickness. Leonia calls him cruel. Duke says that she looks slightly better now, as he wraps his robe with her body. Duke pats her, but Leonia tells him not to tap her, but Duke replies with saying that she does talk a lot. Leonia then asks him if she can vomit on his clothes, to which he replies by saying that she is mocking him, right? Leonia sleeps on Duke's arms. Duke is mesmerized by the situation. He still jokingly calls her ugly. The Glastigo Order of Knights protects the North. They have served Duke for many years, a figure that perfectly fits his family's nickname as the Black Beast. But the same Duke holds Leonia close to himself and comforts her. Levi Path orders everyone to prepare to leave the moment the lady recovers. Everyone, still shocked on what just happened, accepts her order. As they are moving forward in their carriage, Leonia wakes up and finds herself in a city. She is amazed by how cool the spot is. It is her first time looking at something like this. Duke says that it is still pretty small compared to the capital. She would not know, since she has never been to the capital. That is why she thinks this place is the best. She talks about how there is so much snow. Duke says that the Boliodi territory has snow until the spring season. She asks if it is really that cold. Duke says that it is fine once she gets used to it. He likes the cold. Meanwhile, the maids and the servants are panicking, and one of them tells everyone that the Duke is coming home and everyone should get ready. As Duke arrives, he is greeted by an old lady. She is confused when a young child walks out instead of Duke. Leonia exclaims on how big this house is. Duke picks Leonia up and moves on. Everyone bows down to Duke and welcomes him home. She gets uncomfortable by the way Duke is holding her, so he fixes that real quick. She tells him that she is not sick anymore. He says that he knows. Everyone in their head is thinking about who that child is. Meanwhile, Leonia is talking about how hungry she is. She calls Duke out and tells him his chest feels strong, which makes the Duke feel a bit awkward. As they all welcome the Duke, Leonia looks up and looks at the interior of the mansion and calls it that it is one of those murder stories always occur in places like this. Duke asks her how she knows. Meanwhile, the maid beside her literally realizes someone died here. Duke talks about how there is a jail cell in the basement and asks Leonia if she wants to see. She is amazed by the jail in the basement and thinks about torture, but she says that she does not like places with bugs. This conversation makes everyone concerned. The old lady then calls out Duke and says that he must be tired after his trip. Duke says that she does well taking care of the mansion. The one who takes care of the mansion is head butler Kara. Duke then says to Kara to find some wardrobe designers and craftsmen and call them in. She apologizes that what she is about to ask might offend him, but what is the reason Duke is calling these people? Duke points at Leonia and says there is no good place in the house for her, is there? The butler is shocked that it is the child. Leonia introduces herself and says that her name is Leonia to the Kara. Duke stops her and says that the name he gives is a bit longer. Does Leonia already forget? She asks if she is allowed to say it. Duke says that if Leonia plans on introducing herself with just her first name from now on. Leonia blushes and says that her name is Leonia Boliodi. Duke shows affection to Leonia and that makes her feel joyful. The butler is mesmerized by what she just sees. She nervously thinks to herself, but then goes on by saying that she will prepare their meal again. She thinks to herself that it looks like it will be quite busy here for a while. The people of the mansion gossiping about the Duke bringing a child home. They talk about how he keeps holding her in his arms. One of them talks about that child having a black hair, so they start questioning if Duke has a woman. The other maid answers by saying that there is no way he does not, with a face like his. One of the maids says that he seems scary. The other maid says that the little girl does not seem to be scared at all. Suddenly Leonia jumps into the farm saying hello to everyone. She introduces herself by saying that her name is Leonia Boliodi. Everyone finds her cute. Someone takes a maid's name who is called Connie. It is the Kara the butler. She asks if she intends to attend the lady. Connie replies with saying yes. Kara says she is someone who suffers a lot, so please give her some special attention. Connie thinks to herself that Leonia seems to be too skinny, but her rounded eyes are really cute. One of the maids says that kids are all usually cute. The scene cuts to Duke writing something down. 3 of his servants remain silent while he does his work. One of them yells at him asking what he is thinking when he adopts her for a reason like that. She says that this is too irresponsible. And has he thought of her perspective at all? Duke silently looks at Leonia through the window. Leonia is playing in the snow, all filled with joy and laughter. Duke coldly says that a child is not a pet, but the butler goes on saying that his actions seem like he is treating her like an adopted cat for him to play with. He looks at the butler dead in the eyes and asks her if she thinks he does not know that. The butler goes on by saying that otherwise, he would not have brought in a child so impulsively. The butler is pissed, but the other servant wants to ask if they are even related by blood. He tells them to not make him repeat himself. He thinks to himself about the black hair, because only those of the Boliodi family have that hair color, and a child suddenly adopted by the Boliodi family and she has black hair. Rumors will spread, including speculations that she is the Duke's illegitimate daughter. Duke says that first they should get her gain some weight, and stop asking him about things left and right. The butler sighs and asks what does he plan on doing. Duke asks her what she means. He will raise her. The butler seems glad that Duke seems to care for her. She says that first they will have to silence everyone starting rumors about Duke's impulsive actions. She recently calls in some merchants to buy things for the lady, so rumor must have been circulating throughout the territory as well. How does Duke plan on dealing with them? Duke thinks to himself for a while, and changes the topic by saying that she is already running around like this is her own house. Everyone seems confused. Duke then says that for now just let them be. Levi Path almost cuts him off, but Duke looks at her dead in the eyes. She gets intimidated and says that they may say some unpleasant things behind her back. It is simple for someone like her to turn into just something for people to gawk at behind her back. She goes on by saying that of course, no suicidal maniac would dare to insult her outright, but Duke replies with just saying that we can just kill them. He goes on by saying that if someone spots one like that, he will grant them the glory of his blade with their blood. They then hear a knock saying that it is Manus. Duke tells him to come in. He says that the squad is waiting in the lobby. He menacingly says that their beloved guests are here. Leonia is yelling about how she will open something for her, and she asks if this much is all right. The old maid is happy for her action and asks her if she has been having fun. Leonia replies by saying yes, and the snow comes up to her ankles. She goes on by saying that it feels like the snow is grabbing her every time she walks. The old maid answers by saying indeed it does. Should she ask the servants to clear the snow for her? Leonia says no because she likes the snow. She is going to make a giant snowman the next time she goes out. One of the chef says that since she has been having so much fun she should come have a bite. It is the chef's special focaccia pizza. Leonia is amazed by the looks of it. She thanks her and the chef says no problem and tells her to enjoy. Leonia takes a bite and she enjoys it a lot. She compliments the chef telling her it is really amazing. Everyone smiles at her and tells her to feel free to have more. When Leonia is eating her food, Levi Path walks in and calls her. Leonia is joyful to see her and calls her Malius Uni. She rushes towards her, and Levi Path asks her if she has fun exploring, to which Leonia replies by a strong. Levi Path says that she should be less formal when she talks to her. Leonia says that she is used to it. She explains that it is improper for a lady of the Boliodi household to speak formally to one of her knights. Leonia says that she works so hard to become a knight. Levi Path is flustered, and kisses Leonia's hand and tells her Duke is looking for her. Leonia asks if he is asking her to act pretty again. She replies by saying that she thinks Leonia will enjoy this. They enter a room where Leonia is greeted with a little pony as a gift. She is shocked on what the hell this is. The maid starts talking behind her back saying that she seems like they are related, and that she speaks just like the Duke. How are both of them so similar? To which Levi Path smiles to herself. Duke says that she should thank him for the gift she receives. Leonia says that it is too grand. Duke says that he has a request in return. He points at Leonia and tells her to act pretty at least once a day. Leonia is pissed and tells her what happens if she doesn't, to which Duke replies by saying that then he hasn't been raising her properly. He won't kick her out just because she doesn't do it. Leonia calls him a pervert, to which Duke pokes her head and asks her when she is going to call her a dad. She says she will try, all flustered. Duke asks Leonia for her hand and gives her a prize for every time she acts pretty. Levi Path thinks to herself about the thought of the Duke with a strawberry milk candy. Levi Path lifts Leonia. The scene then cuts to Leonia asking why the Mr. calls for her. Levi Path makes a dissatisfied face and Leonia asks her if she is angry. Levi Path just answers by saying that they are just bad guests. Leonia asks why, to which she replies by saying because they are the people that hurt you. Duke asks for Leonia, but she is honestly a bit worried. She is worried she might get her feelings hurt if she sees them again, but she will talk to Duke for her. The scene cuts to the mansion with the orphanage members tied together. Duke asks him what happens to the orphanage. Rupert answers by saying that it burns down due to a fire accident. They have told their authorities that everyone there dies in the blaze, although the only people that should die are those over here. It is truly a tragedy for both the kids and their teacher, Miss Connie. If only they are alive, they would have brought them over to their territory. Duke says that they could have saved them if only they had arrived a bit earlier. He then burns that paper and looks at the prisoners dead in the eyes. Suddenly they can then hear Leonia calling Duke, and that is where the manhwa ends. The Boleotis have always been the reigning power of the North, even if the opposing part is the imperial family. There are many reasons for that. Firstly, because of the beast Fong's Duke and aura can only be achieved by those who have achieved a certain level of swordsmanship. A source of magic is called mana. Duke thinks to himself that this is something completely different. Rupert thinks to himself that's the Duke's ability right there. Rupert then hears Leonia calling out Duke's name. Levi Path puts her down and she rushes towards Duke. Duke says that she will get hurt. She asks her why. She is the best at running away back in the orphanage. Duke says she will come to her senses once that gets her a broken nose one day. Leonia asks her why he has to be so serious. Duke replies by saying that does she have to run away from the orphanage that often? Leonia answers by yes, and says since those people are trying to harm her. Leonia takes a glance at Rupert and calls him out by calling him Mr. Secretary. Rupert says that it is nice to see her again, just call him Rupert. He is relieved to see her doing well. Leonia tells him that she has been eating and sleeping well. Rupert is so relieved to hear that. One of those imprisoned orphanage employees calls her name Mia. Leonia looks at them dead in the eyes. They try to convince her that it is their teachers, and they are worried about her and lie about how much they miss her. They try to make things better with her by asking if she has been eating well. They also talk about how they don't recognize her and that she has gotten so pretty. One of the old man tries to make things better with her by calling her Nia and telling her that it is him Dean. Dean then goes on by saying that she remembers the first day when she comes to the orphanage. It is a very hot summer. She is too small, just like a little mouse, and he is the one who gives her the name. Dean then gets cut off by Leonia calling Duke out. Duke says that these guests have been looking for her and as her dad, it is his duty to entertain them, so she should meet them before he helps them get adjusted. Leonia asks why. Duke says that he wants to see if she wants to spare even one of them. Leonia thinks to herself and tells Duke why she should forgive them. Everyone is in shambles by her response. She goes on by calling her crazy bastard, spouting nonsense. She takes her boot off and says that it is torture time joyfully. They hit one of the teacher with the boot saying that this teacher pinches her forearms every day and this man brags about whipping the kids with a leather belt. And this teacher uses the orphanage funds to have an affair, and looks at Dean and tells her that she should have lived her life better. She comes closer to Dean, scaring her like a menace, and tells her that Dean and she have so many memories in particular. Why does she abuse them so much? Adults like she and the teachers should have protected her, so why does she live like that? Why does she do it? She goes on by saying that she comes to the orphanage in the fall season, not the summer. She drops her boot on her head and tells her to at least remember the date. She opens a box and Duke asks what that is. She replies by saying that it is just a gift for their guests. A requiem, she says to herself menacingly. Rupert is shocked to hear the news about Duke and Leonia not being blood related. The butler Kara tells him to be quiet. Rupert thinks to himself about the black hair and that personality. Leonia is seen flipping off his own orphanage members and tells them they are not going anywhere. To her they all disgust her, so she wants them to go rot in hell or something. Leonia says to Duke that it is refreshing and all those 10 years of stress are all gone. Duke asks her isn't she 7 years old? Leonia says that it is a hyperbole. Does Duke even know what figure of speech are? Duke hands out another candy to Leonia. Leonia says that she hasn't done anything cute today though. Duke says that she does. Leonia says that just now is harassing the orphanage people. Duke says that she acts like a bully. Leonia is flustered and Duke smiles to himself. The maids cheer Leonia up and call her great. Rupert and everyone else is still in shock on what happens. Rupert thinks to himself if he is the only one that isn't moved. Is he the one weird here? After Duke carries Leonia, Leonia tells her to not kill them quickly. Duke says that he won't do something so wasteful. Leonia replies that's right. They need to use them properly. Duke asks her where she even learns something like that. Leonia answers in the orphanage. She goes on talking about how she has an idea that they can tie them up and throw them off a cliff. Both Duke and Rupert are confused on how she knows all of this. She then talks about how they will pop back up because of the tension in the rope, and then go back down, back up, back down, and snap. They will just leave them until the rope snaps. Instead of being concerned, Duke just replies that it would be a good idea. There is a good cliff near the back of the mansion. Leonia tells Duke to not be too rough on them. They need to be healthy for more torture. She will give Duke a slap if he breaks his promise. Rupert is flabbergasted by what she just says but brushes it off, and thinks of a black hair girl calling Rupert's name. He thinks that they don't look alike, and then goes on telling Kara that Lady Regina is dead. One day in a torrential downpour in the Boleody territory, Lady Regina runs away with the man she loves. The man leaves out his hand and they both sit in the carriage. The carriage then falls in a river. Rupert personally investigates that carriage, which has been swept all the way downstream that day. Kara stops Rupert and tells him the body is never found. If those two escape the accident and flee the Boleody territory, the Duke is taking a bath. He has this thought about the butler Kara telling him that she is a child and not a pet. He gets out of the shower and thinks to himself that no matter how she looks at it, a pet is an animal. It is an insult to a group of beasts. Duke then thinks to himself about how she even knows the word requiem. Requiem, money embezzlement, is a word that even noble children of the same age won't know. She goes to an orphanage when she is 5. It wouldn't be so bad to know that word. Or is she a genius? Rupert welcomes Duke and he asks Rupert if he tells him to come in. Rupert says that there is something he has to tell Duke. Rupert is pissed off by Duke's attitude since he has been doing all of his work. Duke takes a glance at Rupert and gets him to his position. Duke then apologizes for coming without a word, for he visits because he thinks it is something important. Suddenly they hear a knocking at the door. It is Leonia asking if Duke is there. She thinks Duke is not here. The maid tells her that it seems like Duke is still in the bath. She sees people preparing for his bath earlier. Should we come back? Leonia tells her that she will just wait. The maid asks Leonia if she is not scared of Duke. The maid explains that Duke is the leader of the North and he is the strongest person in the world, so of course it is natural to be afraid, and she is just a mere servant. She says all of this while Rupert and Duke are listening. Leonia then asks the maid why Duke is being nice to her. The maid replies because Duke cares for her a lot. Leonia says that's so. Then it is good to hear that. Duke smiles to himself, but then she gets all worried and asks what if Mr. becomes an old bachelor because of her. Everyone who is listening to her conversation is shocked. The maid replies by saying that Duke is popular and he can't depend on his face. He should be kind too. He always has a bad temper. Rupert wants to laugh a bit even if his death is near. Meanwhile, Duke stays quiet. The maid goes on by saying that Duke has a bad temper just like a dangling child. This pisses Duke off and he forcefully opens his door, scaring the heck out of the maid. But Leonia is glad he is here and is asking why he is pretending to not be around. Everyone backs flustered by Duke's beauty. Leonia yells out that Duke is shirtless and Mr. Rupert is on the sofa. The maid yells at Leonia that it is not like that. Duke sighs to himself and tells her to come in, and it is not like what she thinks it is. Duke then goes on asking Leonia if she thinks he looks like a kind man to her. Leonia yells at Duke that it is not a sin to like the same gender. Duke, pissed off, tells her that she gets it wrong. He asks her if she thinks he will lose his popularity just because he has a child. Leonia says that later on you should meet a good person. Duke tells her not now. Leonia questions her why. Is it because of her? Duke says that he is not interested in anyone. Duke thinks to himself on why he should even talk to her about this. Duke lifts Leonia up but stops because of her being a creep. He puts on his robe and then picks her up. She asks him why he is dressed up. Duke replies, where does this question come from? Leonia sarcastically says that she is worn out just by looking at him. Duke asks why he has to be harassed by his own daughter. Leonia apologizes and tells him to let him get a sneak peek. Duke then asks why she even comes here. She realizes she has something to give and gives a bag full of cookies, and says that she is going to give this to him. Duke has been working so hard in the dungeon earlier. She bakes these cookies with the chef because she thinks Duke would be tired, eat this and cheer up. She then talks about how during their first encounter, Duke gives her a candy, so she wants to repay him with this. Duke adds his own silly comment by saying that by the looks of it, do all of the ingredients to bake this come from his own money. Leonia dislikes each time he acts like this. She then crashes out and says if he is not going to eat it then just give it back to her. Duke stops her and says that who says he won't eat it. She says that she hates giving this to you because she feels bad. Then what? If she doesn't have any money, wouldn't he be sad? Duke tells her that now his money is hers. Leonia jokingly says that she is just kidding. Rupert on the other hand thinks of those two, have they forgotten his existence? Leonia then leaves and waves goodbye. Duke then realizes that he is still here. What is it just now? Rupert is pissed off that he forgets his existence. Rupert replies by saying that he hasn't told him yet. Duke tells him to say it now. Rupert stays quiet for a while and then tells him that it is about Lady Leonia. Leonia is being tucked in bed and she asks the maid if Duke must have liked the cookies. The maid responds by saying of course. She tells Leonia that she is the one that made them after all. She has been very busy today. The maid goes on telling Leonia that she was so cool earlier. Leonia feels happy about the maid complimenting her. The maid says of course, now they need to get Leonia to sleep. If she needs anything, she should feel free to ring the bell. The maid says that it is a magic bell. Every servant is able to hear it. The maid then asks Leonia if she can see this bracelet. It can hear the bell through this thing here. Leonia thinks that is cool. The maid says that it is quite expensive. She tells Leonia to sleep well. Leonia says to herself that she has seen children making music with similar bells before, in her previous life. The scene cuts to Rupert telling Duke that it is regarding Lady Leonia's condition during her birth. Duke says that they are over this already. Rupert trembles, but he says that he believes that they should look more into it. Duke asks why. Rupert says to Duke to not get offended to what he is about to say. Duke says that it is unnecessary. Rupert is begging Duke. He is putting his life on the line after all. Duke asks Rupert if he wants a pinky promise too. Rupert says that he believes that Lady Leonia and Lady Regina might have a possible connection. Duke says that Regina is dead, but Rupert responds that they never found her body. He goes on by saying that if Lady Regina and her love had escaped that accident, and their daughter is Lady Leonia, they must correct the rumors that she is an illegitimate child. Duke thinks to himself and says that he sees now. He goes on by saying that honestly he had also been thinking of investigating Leonia's past. But listening to Rupert has convinced Duke that they should not. They met Leonia at an orphanage. Rupert yells at Duke that is all the more reason to look into her biological parents. Duke asks by what if they do. He asks if Rupert is going to tell her that these are her parents, but they are dead now. And what if she is Regina's daughter? That sort of background is not good for Leonia, the daughter of a woman who ran away with a man the family disapproved of, the illegitimate daughter of the most powerful man in the empire, the Lord of the North, Duke Boleody. She would think the latter holds significantly more weight. Rupert says that he has made a mistake and Duke has been one step ahead of him. Duke thinks to himself about Regina's daughter. He did not even think that was a possibility. Duke asks Rupert if Leonia looks similar to Regina in his eyes. Rupert answers by if he has to be honest with Duke, he has to say no. Rupert thinks to himself that rather Leonia resembles the Duke to the point it is scary. Duke says that confirming Leonia's lineage is a simple matter. When they first met at the orphanage, he saw the child's black eyes shine like gold. At that time, Duke thought it was just an uncontrolled mana flowing out, but it was not. And that is a clear evidence that she is a Boleody. The scene then cuts to Duke and Leonia eating delicious food. She feels happy with what she gets served with. Meanwhile, Duke eats his meal. Duke brings his fork towards Leonia and says that they will have to try her dangling idea next time. While feeding Leonia, she makes her image on how they would get tortured. Leonia asks Duke if it was because of the weather. Duke replies by saying yes. In this weather, the only people getting hurt will be the freezing nights. They should have hung them up yesterday. Leonia gets off her chair and one of the maids makes her wear her jacket, to which Leonia thanks her. She says that she looks like Superman. Duke asks her who that is. She explains the person who wears his underwear over his pants. This leaves Duke puzzled. Leonia asks herself if perverts like that exist. She thinks he is not a pervert. He is just wearing his underwear over his clothes. It is a personal preference. She thinks that is the definition of a pervert. Duke thinks to himself that she keeps calling him a pervert though. Leonia keeps on talking about how clothes do not matter for Superman. It is his body, his wide shoulders and chest muscles. Duke asks her if revealing his body was part of his nature. Leonia thinks to herself on how he can be so flattering and sturdy. She runs and Duke warns her that she is going to break her nose if she moves like that. Leonia and Duke sitting on a sofa where then a maid gives her a book. Leonia thanks her, and when Duke takes a glance on which book she is reading, it is a very deep, mature book about how life is meaningless. Duke feels shocked on what he sees, and asks Leonia what about the fairy tales. She replies that they are too childish. Duke says that kids her age are supposed to read stuff like that. She says that she is done anyway. Duke thinks to himself that looks impossible. He asks Leonia where she found that book. She says that it was Duke's library. She says that she could read anything she wanted. Duke asks her why she chooses that. She explains the title seemed interesting. Leonia says that from her experience, life is truly meaningless. Duke thinks to himself that he guesses that could have been her realization, since living at the orphanage must have been tough. Duke asks Leonia, did she ever want to see her birth parents? Leonia says that she does not know who they are. She does not remember anything before the time at the orphanage and Duke is her parent now. Leonia goes on saying that she does not remember anything about her birth parents. And she does not have any feelings for people she cannot remember. She is just sad that they are just a secret part of her, that she cannot ever meet again. Silence erupts in the room. She asks Duke if she needs to remember. Duke tells her it is fine if she does not want to and gives her a strawberry milk candy. Duke then goes on by saying that at least she remembers that he is her parent now. He thought she had forgotten since she never called him dad. Leonia explains that is because she is not used to it. Duke tells her that excuse is getting old. Leonia asks him if he wants to fight. While softly punching Duke and eating her candy, Duke gently smiles at her. He asks Leonia to let him see her eyes. She asks if it is a staring contest. They keep on staring at each other. Duke tries finding inside her eyes, but Leonia closes her eyes because it starts to sting. Duke tells the maids to get out. As the maid leaves, Duke says to Leonia that he does not like beating around the bush. That is when people who do not have anything act like they are something important, when they really are not. Leonia thinks to herself if he has a bad memory about it or something. Duke tells Leonia that he is going to be honest with her. She looks like his niece. Leonia feels confused but then gets concerned and tells Duke that she is just an orphan. Duke saw her at the orphanage. She thinks to herself where Duke even got that information. Duke says that her body traits are of a Boleody. She says that it is probably a coincidence. Duke says that the black hair is a genetic trait that only runs in the house of Boleody. The bold child gets intrigued, so she bares her fangs on him on purpose. That sparkle in her eyes back then, Duke thought that was the flow of mana. In order to protect themselves, young magicians often let out mana as a natural defense mechanism, but that was not mana. Duke asks Leonia if she knows what her fangs are. She replies by that thing where her eyes change and Duke gets this bloodlust. Duke says that she would not have known, but her eyes were glowing back at the orphanage. That is because her power resonated with Duke. Leonia asks that glow just now was because of that resonance. But it was not scary at that time. Duke replies by saying that is because it was not meant to be, just wanted to check whether she had this ability. The lion's fang resonates with those having the same ability. She realizes that she is a real Boleody. She looks at her hands and pinches herself, asking if this is not a dream. Duke asks if she needs to pull her cheeks like that. Leonia then asks who gave birth to her. Duke replies by saying that it was his older cousin. She was the most annoying woman in the world. Filio. Varia of the Black Sea is the novel that the protagonist, Ebonite, read in her previous life. It is the love story of the Lord of the North, Duke Boleody, and his eternal companion, Countess Varia, a novel that spun a full narrative from a cliched trope. But when she wakes up, Leonia's entire existence falls into crisis. Because she doesn't awaken as a noble like those in fantasy novels, but as a penniless orphan.